chronic worrier. Like, I worry about everything, and I've always just had that anxiety. And number one, with worrying, you always have to understand where it comes from, because when you can identify the root, you can identify triggers and how to kind of avoid them or cope with them or manage them. And so I know that my worrying and that my overthinking and my obsessive thoughts and all of this stress and anxiety comes from my childhood. I think when I was a child, I really just needed words of affirmation from my parents, and I never got it. So I was never affirmed, I was never reassured, and so I was always just kind of left to assume an outcome, or I was left to my mind, basically. And as a child, your mind goes into a million different places because you really don't understand life, and you don't understand that, because whenever our parents are the first authority that we ever really look up to or obey, quote unquote. And so I just thought the worst thing would happen, right? If I didn't know how my parents felt about a certain situation, or if I didn't know if I was doing the right thing or not. And so when they didn't reassure me, and when they didn't almost comfort me in that way, like, you don't have to worry, I was just left to constantly worry. And so that's where my worry comes from. And so this week, well, actually for the whole month of February, I've just been doing uncomfortable things. Like, I have never been this uncomfortable in my life. Like, I have just been completely stepping out of my comfort zone, doing super uncomfortable things, and it has been extremely hard. And so I knew this week I would be doing so much more uncomfortable things back to back to back. And I was just like I always do, like I did when I was a child. I always try to prepare myself ahead of time so that in some way in my mind I'm still in control of the outcome, even though I don't know what's going to happen. And so I remember I was so afraid to do this thing, and I was stressing over it. I got about 5 pimples from just thinking about it, stressing about it the whole week. And the day finally came. And for the first thing that I stressed about, it wasn't hard. It was nothing like I thought it would be. And I didn't end up having to do it as many times as I thought I would. I can't really give context to it, but and then for the second thing that I was stressing about, I ended up not even doing it anyways, and the person ended up telling me, like, it's okay, you're exempt, you don't have to do it, right? And then I went home and I thought to myself, like, worrying is the biggest scam in this world. With the amount of scamming, the government, politics, with the amount of scamming that there is in this world, like, worrying has to be like the biggest scam ever. You spend all your time toiling back and forth, trying to come up with a solution, trying to come up with outcomes, trying to control people's minds, people's perceptions, situations that you have no control over. You get stressed, you start overeating, you start doom scrolling, you start getting acne, you start just breaking out, you just start going in this whole spiral, only for the next day to come. And it feels like, and I felt mad at that time. I was mad at myself because I'm just like, I spent all this time, and it would have been better for what I was worrying about to come true than for it to not, because I feel like I just wasted all my time. Like, and this is so much time. You have no clue how much time you really spend worrying, overthinking, and obsessing over things that are never going to happen. And I have to tell you, 99.9% of the time I've worried about something, it never actually happened in that way at all. For the 1% where it did happen in that way, it was because I almost manifested it. I spoke that negativity into my life so much that it showed up. But other than that, like, there's not a single time worrying has ever accomplished anything, and it is the biggest waste of time. Like, when I tell you worrying is really just the biggest waste of time, like, I spent hours in prayer toiling about this thing, and it never happened. And I'm at the end of the week now. I'm recording this on a Friday, and I'm just like, I stressed myself out. I made myself sick to my stomach just for none of the things that I worried about to happen. How many times have we done this in our lives? And so in that moment, God gave me a revelation, and he said, when I move you into this new land, when I move you away from your hometown, when I move you into new rooms, when I sit you at new tables, is this what you're going to do every single time? And I read this article about this because you're not the only one going through it, I promise you. So many people experience this, and I read this article, and this woman was saying that she does this almost in a way to torture herself, so that if the situation does happen, she was right about it. And if the situation doesn't happen, then maybe it deserved to happen to her. Like, she literally said that we do this as a way to torture ourselves, because when we're so used to living in chaos, and when we're so used to living in disarray, the minute there is peace, the minute there is joy, the minute there is quiet, the minute that there is stillness, we're trying so hard to replicate that everyday life that we lived as children. And if that everyday life was filled with chaos, then we need to see some type of chaos to feel like we're living right, like we're living quote unquote right. Because that's all we've ever known, all we've ever seen, and it makes perfect sense. Like, I was doing uncomfortable things, I was stepping out of my comfort zone, but I'm happy. I've been growing. I'm happier here than I am in my comfort zone, feeling stuck and stagnant. I've been asking God to do a new thing in my life, because I feel like I've been living the same day over and over and over again. So I'm technically living in an answered prayer, yet my mind is almost trying to torture me into believing that there has to be some type of chaos, there has to be some type of stress or struggle or some type of fight that has to be put up for me to be able to be happy. And again, that's us reliving things in our childhood. Like, if you always had to struggle to get good things, if you always had to overdo it to get something that you've been promised, then that's how our reward system in our mind works. We think that every time, in order to get good things, or in order to be happy, or simply just to live in peace, that there has to be some type of destruction that comes first. But Jesus took that destruction for us on the cross so that we can have unlimited direct access to peace whenever we want. If I told you right now that peace is free to you and you can have it in this very moment and drop all your worries, would you believe me? Jesus said in Matthew, you don't get because you don't ask. You don't receive because you never ask. It's as simple as asking for peace, but then also believing and having the faith that it's already yours. And so we're always tormenting ourselves with these thoughts. And God said, if you want to move higher up, if you want a peaceful future, if you really want to level up and step into that new version of yourself, you can't keep tormenting yourself every second you get. You can't keep replaying awkward situations in your mind, or saying, oh, I wish this happened this way, I wish this happened that way. You need to get to the point where you're just like, it didn't happen this way, it didn't happen that way, but it happened exactly how it's supposed to. And I think because of COVID and just like the disarray that has happened in our society, we forget that awkwardness is such a part of human interaction. Like, we watch social media where we constantly see like instant results. Like, oh, I met her one day, we're instantly best friends the next day. I took this opportunity one day, I'm instantly loved in the office the next day. When in reality, that's not how life works at all. There's always this sense of awkwardness. There's always this sense of confusion, because we're getting to know each other and we're fitting into new environments and communities. And so social media has really lied to us and has us feeling like everything needs to be instant results in order for it to be real, or in order for it to be good. And so we sit here and we replay moments of regret or awkwardness, or times where we feel like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that. But the truth of the matter is, awkwardness and all of these little things are character development stages in our lives. And don't let COVID make you forget that this is how things have always been. There's always been an awkwardness when you meet a new friend for the first time. There's always been, a time where you said something you shouldn't have said. But I promise you that nobody is dwelling on what you said as much as you are. That is a little interaction out of somebody's day, and everybody is so concerned with themselves and with their lives. Nobody is thinking about that one time you messed up. And if a person is thinking about that, then that's their own issue. but we cannot keep living as slaves to worry because we're free from that. So receive the peace that is so readily available to you today.